I come from Penrith originally, and I remember in second year junior school, I think it would have been first, second year junior school, my teacher, Mrs. Westgarth, said to the entire class, right, who wants to learn recorder? And I went, yeah, okay, that could be cool, fine. So played that for a bit, and then off the back of that, the school then said, right, who wants to play violin? So I thought, oh, I quite like recorder, music's quite fun, so let's have a go at violin. So I played violin for a long time, all the way through secondary school. I still do to a point, and I got grade 8 violin at 15, 16, I think it was.
Wow.
My violin teacher then said to me, do you know anybody who wants to be a drummer? Because I'm forming a jazz band. I don't know any drummers. And I thought, well, actually, that sounds a bit fun. So I picked up drums as well, and gave that a bit of a blast. And that was great because, you know, you had the kind of the precision of the violin, but the release and the kind of the anger of playing drums. And we used to play, I played in the band. We came across the Monroes. Is it Monroes in Workington? Yeah. So we played there. We played a few places, but it was kind of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Green Day, all that kind of stuff. You know, total antithesis to kind of the whatever it was we were playing on violin. A lot of, you know, technical stuff on the violin. It was great stuff. So great violin, and then playing drums. The obvious thing to do would be do A-level music, and I didn't do that. I did A-level history, English, and politics and general studies because I wanted to be a lawyer. Halfway through being a lawyer, I thought, I don't want to wear a suit all day. I want to wear a t-shirt. He says wearing a shirt now. So then I thought, right, what can I do? And I went, finally went to uni and studied popular music and music technology. 3 years full time. Brilliant stuff. You know, you learned everything from music history, composition, studied drums, and studio stuff as well. So we spent a lot of time in the studios recording everything from kind of bells, little hand bells, through to kind of proper bands and choirs, everything between, you know, to give you the different skill sets you need to be a rounded engineer, not just concentrating on one thing specifically. So from there, after finishing uni, a friend of mine who was in that band back in Penrith, who played at Monroe's, we then trucked down to London, London, for the Bright Lights, to see if we can make music into a living somehow. And we landed a flat with a lady who owned a courier firm. She had a connection at a company who had a recording studio. It's big, one of the top 10 London recording studios, you know. This company also had a sound stage that did pop music videos and commercials and adverts and stuff. So she said, right, let's see if we can get you in there. So I ended up being a white van man for that company, which wasn't quite how I thought things would pan out, frankly, after being at uni and, you know, studying music. And I thought I had a degree and everything. Why am I being a white van man? But it was a way in. It was a door. It was an opening, and it was a chance to work in. And when I saw that studio, oh, it was beautiful, you know. Big old 64-track SSL studio, massive speakers, beautiful live room, and it had all the people coming through, and it was my absolute lucky break. And we'll come back to lucky breaks in a bit. But from there then, I spent 18 months or so. So started off there as a T-boy eventually. So the white van gig stopped. At that time, I was also a runner on a film studio set, as I say, doing all these commercials and stuff. So every time I went down from that studio set to the recording studio, I pestered the guide and said, look, I want to make tea for you. I want to make tea for you. I'm the best tea maker in the world. Try my tea, and I will do anything to work in that studio. And they said, right, we'll pay you minimum wage, maybe a little bit less at that time, but here's your one chance. So, you know, you make the best tea in the world. You excel at making tea. Then one day, the guy said to me, it's going to pop out for a minute. Do you mind putting that microphone over there? So I put a microphone in front of the kick drum. I thought, this is great. And then from there, did that a few times. Then from there, somebody said, it's got to pop out for the afternoon. Can you just mix this for me? You know, I've got mixing this as a rough mix. And then from there, he left. And then the studio said, we're kind of stuck for an engineer. Do you want to be the engineer? And I thought, yes, please. Here's me. I don't know, whatever age I was, 21, 22. 64-track SSL studios and the biggest names coming through that studio. It was just the most beautiful thing. It was amazing. And then I thought, well, okay, this is great, but I want to kind of evolve my skills a little bit. So I phoned up the BBC in Cumbria and said, so how do you get into the BBC? You know, and they said, funnily enough, there's a guy leaving the BBC called Adam. And he kind of has a job doing kind of what you want to do. So he does a lot of outside broadcasts. And it might be that, you know, come up, have a chat, see how it goes on. Little did I know that back when I was at Allswater School, I'd sung in a choir for a carol service at one of the churches in Penrith, Methodist Church in Penrith. And the BBC come down to record, and, you know, little old me kind of followed some wires around, knocked on the door and said, "Can I have them for your truck, please?" And they came in and said, we chatted about 3/4 an hour or so. This is the desk, blah, blah, blah. The guy who I talked to when I phoned up Radio Cumbria to see if I could get in was the guy who was in the truck, and he remembered me from, it must have been about 5 years ago. So he then said, "Yeah, I remember you. Come up and have a chat." Had an interview, got the job at Radio Cumbria, and then went to Holker Hall, went to Carlisle shows, went to Penrith shows, went to Westmoreland shows, drove the desks for the breakfast show for a long time, all this kind of stuff. Anything to do with sound, just let me at it, you know, give me a go, get my hands dirty. Yes, I can do it. I've got no idea. Yes, I can do it. And so it all worked out, and it was fantastic. So I stayed there for 4 years. From there, then I went down to London again to be the most junior member of staff in the Radio 1 operations team. Spent 14 years at Radio 1 in the operations team. And when I left in October last year, I was senior technical producer for Radio 1, Radio 2, 1Xtra, Asian Music, and 6 Music. Have I said that? Radio 1, Radio 2, 6 Music, 1Xtra, Asian Network. Yeah. And then we did a little bit for BBC Introducing, BBC Music, and BBC Sounds as well as part of all that. So from there, I went to be managing director of studio operations at a company called an audio post-production company called Wise Buddha in central London. So they do a lot of work for everybody, for the BBC, for the biggest recording companies. They do a lot of stuff for TV, podcast, all that kind of stuff. So we looked after the operations for 5 beautiful studios in central London. We had, you know, again, the biggest names you'd expect the BBC to attract coming through those doors. And also, crucially, people who just started out doing podcasts. They hadn't got a clue what they were doing, but they came to us because we were a trusted brand and we could help them out. We made them feel special, and that, you know, that their product was as important as the big name clients who were coming through as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Then in March, COVID hit and it all went wrong. So, you know, business took a completely different turn, and people took advantage of the tech that was out there. They took advantage of the fact that if they wanted to get content in places, they kind of had to do it themselves. So a lot of people learned a lot of stuff very quickly, including us.
Right.
And then in July last month, my boss and I had a conversation. He said, "Right, there's a business here. It's not necessarily in the physical premises, but you can take this and go and do your own thing, and see how you get on." So 2 weeks ago, I started my own production company, and we've just kind of got that off the ground, and it's a bit nerve-wracking, but it's great fun, and we're hoping to kind of attract similar kind of clients, and continue working in sound and delivering, you know, awesome audio to big names and small names and anybody who wants it, in the hope that that audiences get great sound and appreciate great sound. And that's kind of my story in sound.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and what a journey it is. All the different places that you've been, and it's so interesting because a lot of people that we've spoken to on this series have said similar things, in that, like, they went and stayed somewhere. One lady, Tess Kendall, she works for a record label called Ninja Tune Records, and she was saying that she worked at a pub, and the people that worked at Glastonbury just happened to come in to the pub, and that's how she. I know you say you moved in with the housemate in London, and that was how, you know, it's
a lot. So much of it is about having a lucky break. But as somebody said to me a long time ago now, he said, it's all very well and good having these lucky breaks, but you've got to be ready. So when they come along, you're ready, and you've got the skills, and you've got the knowledge, and you've got the mindset, crucially, because this industry, the audio industry, is all about people. You can learn process, you can learn stuff, but it's people skills and being nice with people, treating them really well, understanding what their needs are, delivering on time, and being honest. So if you can't deliver on time, whatever it is, you know, fess up and say, I'm unable to do this, give a reason and rectify it as quickly as you can. There's one guy who I know who used to work in this this beautiful studio. I'll see if I can condense this for you, but basically he got a call one night to say, right, there's this new software called Pro Tools. We don't know anything about it, but do you know Pro Tools? And he said, because we need somebody to kind of run a Pro Tools session tomorrow. And this guy said, how much is it? And, you know, they gave a really attractive figure. And the guy said, I know Pro Tools. Not a problem at all. He spent the entire night learning how to use Pro Tools from a manual. He didn't even have the hardware in front of him, learned it from a manual. Next day, went into the studio. Who walks through the door? George Michael. And the session ran, and now he's been doing all that kind of level work. He's flown all around the world in Pro Tools, but that's balls of steel. But so that you've got to take risks. You know, my risk was to truck down to London for a day, not knowing anything. You know, everyone's got to take risks. It's risks, it's luck, it's knowledge, and it's your personal approach. Yeah, brilliant, great advice. Because someone's actually asked a question about what experience was useful to you to get to where you were, and a lot of the stuff that you've said from your story is kind of you were just up for it. You were like, I'll do it. I'll be there. I'll be just there, there's an element of being up there, but equally you've got to put the work in.
Yes.
I think dedication is immediately obvious when you meet people, and that passion, you know, that real drive and that desire to want to do the stuff.
Yeah.
Because as the recording studio MD, managing director, said to me when I first got that job there as a T-boy, he said, look, there are 1 million people behind you. Why should I hire you? And I might have come out with something like, because you won't get anybody making tea better than me or whatever, I don't know, something glib. But you have to know your stuff. So when the time comes, you can hit the ground running and you can prove to people that, you know, they made a right call in hiring you.
Yeah.
Or the capacity to learn, going over and above, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be standard. Everyone's going to be standard. So you need to be one step up from standard, if not more, in order to shine. And for people to say, all right, he was really good at that. Let's give him a shot at doing this.
Yeah, brilliant. What great advice. What questions have I got here then? So somebody's asked about kind of a day in the life of your role and the kind of things that you do. Because I imagine it's probably quite varied.
Well, it is nowadays. It depends, because now, as I say, now I've kind of moved on to a point from being behind the big broadcast desks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I was working at Radio 1, I'd be looking after the sound for Glastonbury or Ibiza or Reading or One Extra Live or whatever it would be, and that's coordinating the feed from the outside broadcast truck, playing in the music, getting callers up, all that kind of thing. So that was you know, a really steep learning curve, and it's really good fun, and the buzz you get from that, you know, when you got main stage Glastonbury coming through one fader.
Wow.
And you know you're broadcasting to millions of people, but if you bring that fader down, millions of people hear your mistake. You get a P45 not long after. But a day in the life at the moment it's kind of changed some more. I now kind of run the companies who look after the engineers who do that work. So it's a completely different ballpark. My work now is a lot more aligned to attracting clients in the first place. A lot of it's kind of client focused, but when I say client here, you mean people, right? It's companies who want to have a hand getting stuff done. So they might have had a film crew going out to, I don't know, Rwanda or somewhere, or America, or wherever it's going to be, and they want their audio to sing and to sound beautiful, you know. So my job is to liaise with them, figure out what they want, make sure our engineers know what they want, book them, and make sure that, you know, that end product is delivered in time to the right cost, to the right quality, crucially, and that they are happy so that they come back. Because it's you know, it's the music business. It's a business. It's there to make money. It's there, depending on what aspect of the business it is, to deliver art. Fundamentally, what you're making is something beautiful. But equally, there's a business around that, and people want things done at the right price, at the right time, and as quickly, sometimes as possible, sometimes even quicker than that, and you've got to manage that. That's quite difficult. But a day in the life, there's no 2 days. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about doing what we do. You know, you work in a studio, you've got different people coming through the doors every single day. You're sitting here, you're talking to different people about different things. Today, it's all been about tax, which is dull, but really important. Because tomorrow, well, actually Monday, it might be talking to somebody about a brilliant new project that they've got on the horizon, and they want to say, get their audio to sound the best it can be, or at least in line with a lot of their peers. So that's the benchmark. And I think a lot of people nowadays are going to talk about benchmarks and how things should sound versus how you want them to sound. And there's a big discussion there about whether vinyl is better than CD or MP3s. I'll talk about that later on if you've got time.
Wow. That is so interesting, isn't it? Because I guess in the music industry, you're right in that, you know, no 2 days are ever the same. And no, there's such a variety, but makes it so exciting, I guess, as well. Yeah. Someone's asked here, have you got any highlights from the work that you've done? Any projects that you've worked on that have been really special, or people that you've worked with, or
you know what? There's one that stands out head and shoulders above all else. And that was when Radio 1's Big Weekend came to Carlisle.
Oh yeah.
As a little boy, sat in my bedroom in Penrith, trying to figure out Dave Grohl's drum parts to Smells Like Teen Spirit, you know. Yeah. I never thought in a million years that Foo Fighters would come to Carlisle, and that I would be part of helping deliver that to the nation and beyond. Radio 1's Big Weekend in Carlisle was, as I said, head and shoulders above all else. It was just a massive opportunity to showcase Cumbria to the world, and I'll put Cumbria on the world stage, because it was, you know, we had Lady Gaga come through, we had Foo Fighters come through, we had all that kind of caliber of people come through to the Carlisle airport.
Crazy.
Helicopter landing in Carlisle airport with these massive A-listers on. It was brilliant. But that was a very, very, very special thing for me. And everything kind of came full circle. But other things, other highlights, again, it's the Glastonbury's. It's, you know, those massive, massive, big cultural musical events where you know that you're one cog, and I'm really, really keen to point out to people that it's a process. The guys who do security, the caterers, the people who load in, load out, all the techies, everybody, the sparkies, the council, everybody's part of a chain, and you can't deliver something like that with all those little cogs just all working nice and smoothly together, well oiled, you know. It's all part of that chain. So I had a really exciting job, but other people had really exciting jobs as well. But that's not to say that people who don't necessarily have what is perceived to be exciting jobs weren't important, because they were crucial, you know. Security, vital. Health and safety people, vital. Caterers, even more vital, because nobody working on an empty stomach, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But it was, you know, Radio 1 was a fantastic place to work. Radio 2, Six Music, all of them, you know, they were brilliant. But getting the call to say that I got a job at Radio Cumbria, and working for the BBC in Cumbria, again, brilliant, because I love, you might have got the feeling by now, I love Cumbria with all my heart.
Yeah.
Very special place. And I think it's really difficult. I'm so glad that kind of Soundwave exists and people like you guys exist, because I think a lot of people, especially when I was growing up, felt it really difficult to kind of get out of the kind of the Cumbria bubble, as it were, and kind of have exposure to the outside world.
Yeah.
You know, the internet is making that a bit easier nowadays, and to make contact with people and to do things like this is fantastic. But it's all about networking with people and talking to people and kind of highlighting to them what you can do. And it is ironic, I guess, that I had to come back to Cumbria to start my journey in the BBC. But again, it's all about lucky breaks, about knowing what you're doing at the time. So highlights, I don't. Cumbria is, you know, where it all is, and Glastonbury and things like that, really.
Yeah, brilliant, great. It's interesting that you mentioned like the kind of behind the scenes-y jobs that go on within live events and stuff, because that's something that there's obviously been quite a hot topic in the past week or so. They had like there was like a demonstration in Liverpool and Manchester. It's so important, isn't it, to raise awareness of the fact that, you know, these big artists show up for a festival, and I think some people just think those stages just appear. But there's so many people behind that do all of that, you know.
There's a massive, I mean, if you think about the pyramid stage at Glastonbury, but if you think about the music industry as being that pyramid, you've got the artists right at the top, but they can't do what they do without everybody underneath, all the way down there. And actually, maybe pyramid is the wrong word, because I think the pyramid assumes that the person at the top is the best.
Like tip of the iceberg, maybe? The iceberg with all the stuff underneath.
I'll go an iceberg. That's good, because the people at the top just poking above the water, but underneath that, there's a whole body of people who, the drivers of the trucks that will, there's massive Arctic trucks that will truck all that gear up and down the country around Europe. And, without them being on time, if they don't know where the A66 is, and they know that, Brough probably is like a gateway then to the east, if they cross that way, that knowledge, stuff doesn't happen. So there's a massive amount of jobs, just in the BBC, huge amount of jobs that most people know nothing about until they go, actually, I could do that. Project managers, accountants, some music industry accountants, very well paid. Thank you very much indeed. Maths and music are your thing. Go that way.
It's something that we talk a lot about at Soundwave. We've done a few projects in the past called like the DIY project, where we kind of go into detail about like the different job opportunities are out there in the music industry, not just being the Ed Sheeran on the stage. There's so many other things to go down, and it's so interesting that you mentioned that.
It's worth doing. Just sit there. I mean, if anybody's got 2 seconds or 10 minutes, whatever, just see how wide you can make those job listings, and everything from the people who make the cables, the people who actually do the soldering, all that kind of stuff, vital. Yeah,
so important. So important. I think you've actually covered quite a few of the questions that have already been asked here, actually, which is awesome. Let's have a little look. Someone's asked a question about Airaphon. So how is Airaphon aiming to change how post-production services are delivered? So it's kind of about the stuff that you do and how that's going to look. Somebody interested in sound, I think.
So let me explain a bit about Airaphon and kind of the name behind it. So some people who might be watching this might know kind of the Ullswater area and know a place called Airaphon. And one of my lasting memories when I was a kid was, I can't imagine how old I was, maybe about 5 or 6 or something along those lines, walking up to Airaphon after it had been really raining, like proper hardcore rain, Airaphon, tons of water coming down. But I couldn't see Airaphon, I could only hear it. And there was this huge, big kind of thunderous sound as all that water was coming underneath that bridge at Airaphon. And that had a lasting effect on me, kind of the power of sound. And I've gone back there many times. Obviously, for those people who know, it's a beautiful place. But when I was trying to think about what to call our company, I wanted to incorporate something about kind of streaming audio streams, river, water, confluence of sound, all that kind of stuff. And Airaphon just kind of popped into my head, and I thought that might be quite a nice thing to call it, Aira something. Phon is the Greek for sound, so then kind of phonics, telephone, any kind of thing that's sound related that has phon in it. So put Aira and Phon, Airaphon. That's how we get together. So how are we hoping to kind of change the way where the audio post-production works? It's a kind of a halfway house between the old, what they call on-premises model, where you'd have a physical studio where people would go to, so engineers, guests, clients, all that kind of stuff, to record stuff. But equally in that same place, it would get mixed. And then that will be the place where the work gets done. As we all know, you can sit in your bedroom and make a record now. You have been able to do that for 20 years. That's why the big old studio that I worked in closed down, because there was a tiny room downstairs, which had Pro Tools in it, where people were coming to get their stuff mixed, not recorded, but mixed. And we had this beautiful studio where no one was coming into it. We were charging £800 a day, minus engineer costs. So what we're hoping to do is kind of marry that traditional way of doing things, so the on-prem model, with this, not new, but to the industry, it's a relatively new thing, because it's a massive risk to say to a business, right, you're going to completely shift the way that your business operates from being within 4 walls and bricks and studios to doing it externally. But COVID-19 proved to everybody that, cumulatively, if you wanted to take that risk beforehand, when maybe your competitors weren't going to do, and there was a massive risk and possibly a financial risk to you to do so, it's a lot easier now when everyone's taking that risk to just jump in and do it. And so what we're hoping to do is marry what we've learnt during COVID and people's capacity and desire to embrace change, work in new ways, with that old version where you actually need somewhere to kind of get the stuff done. So there's still going to be a need for physical premises where voiceover artists or whoever go and record stuff in beautiful rooms with great acoustics, you know. But then there's no need for an engineer to be sat there in a London studio where you're paying a lot of money to have the privilege to do so, when they might prefer to do that in their pajamas, in their, you know, having their bowl of cornflakes next to them and mixing, or doing it at night time, whatever, you know, having that flexibility to get the stuff done in the way that you as an individual want to do, because you might want to go out for a run, or you might want to go in the fells, or whatever it's going to be, just to clear your head. Don't want to be sat on a train for 2 hours each way, you know, having to go to work, when the work can come to you and you can be on the end of a phone, mix it, you know, deliver it via Dropbox or whatever, and off you go. Yeah. So it's not a new idea. We're not doing anything revolutionary. What we're just doing is using the tech and the mindsets that people have accepted as being, I mean, I hesitate to use the word normal, but beneficial, to deliver the same caliber of content, just in a way that suits people better, and give people that flexibility to work and live in the way that they want, while still adhering to standards.
Yeah, brilliant. And there's a lot of young people that work with us that have been during lockdown recording and producing their own music at home. And we've got a question here about that kind of thing and recording sound and stuff. And somebody's asked for some tips on getting a fuller sound when recording. Now, this could be from your point of view. Any comment you want to make on that, then please do.
A fuller sound.
A fuller sound.
Okay. Yeah. So the best thing that I think is, well, the most crucial thing when you're recording sound is to make sure, and as daft as this sounds, to make sure that you're recording only the sounds that you want.
Right. And
therefore you're not recording the sounds that you don't. And what I mean by that is, I mean, say for example, I'm talking to you now, close the windows, because there's the people playing with their kids out the back there. And there might be some trucks going outside. So what I've done is kind of isolated myself in the hope that my sound's coming across to you in a slightly better way. So if you're recording vocals, you want to have a dead room. My wife does a lot of voiceovers for anybody, you know. She might do some stuff for big name clients who might drop things through your house if you order them online, with a big old orange thing, you know. I can't possibly know who they are. But that'd be product placement, and that'd be bad. But what we've done is, in the loft there's a tiny little cupboard, and she goes in there, and it's got clothes hanging up on a railing, so you know it's making that room sound dead, so that what the client gets from her voiceover is just her voice. We've used a little baffle behind the microphone to remove any reflections that bounce around the room, and just to make the quality of that sound better at source. You don't always need, okay, put it this way, you buy a Neumann U87 microphone at £2,000, you have the windows open, it's going to sound bad. You buy, because it's highly sensitive, it's a beautiful microphone, but you buy a Shure SM58 for a 20th of the cost, but you get that room sounding right, and you're going to get a better content straight away. So when you're wanting that kind of fuller sound, the first thing to get right is the acoustics of the room. Then it kind of depends on what you mean by fuller sound. If you mean kind of compressed, big, warm, depends what instrument you're recording. If you're,
this could be vocal. I'm guessing this could be vocals.
Okay. So let's go with vocal for the minute. So then the secret to that then is, again, getting that room sounding right, and then figuring out where the sweet spots in the vocal are from an EQ perspective. And then just kind of bring a little bass, it's almost like a U-shaped EQ, but everyone's voices are different, so don't take that as standard. You've got to have a listen, and just you trust your ears, because if you're going to be an audio professional, people are going to hire you because you've listened a lot. Reference a lot of the stuff that you love, and try and figure out how things sound in relation to that. You know, if you've got a female artist whose voice sounds beautiful, Why is it? Can you emulate that if your voice sounds similar to theirs? And just trying to experiment a little bit, because every guitar sounds different, every kick drum sounds different. You know, everyone's voices sounds different. So a lot of it, when you say full of sound, I think the question is, make something sound the way you want it by trial and error. So whether that's a mixture of EQ and compression, or limiting, or acoustics, or whatever that might be, gear, you know, different microphone placements. I worked with a guy, I was really fortunate years ago to go out to France and Chicago with my violin and play on some albums for a friend of mine, with a guy called Steve Arbini, who's a really well-respected engineer. His mic placement was just something bonkers. He would open up his room in terms of the sound by putting microphones right at the back of the room, on the floor, voice facing the corner. But he did that because he'd experimented with it. And what he did then was mixed in the room sound with the dry vocal sound that you got in the booth to create a different kind of acoustic. And so it's things like messing around with your reverbs, depending on the kind of track you want, whether you want it to kind of an ambient feel, more reverb, or more kind of a gated feel. It depends on what you're wanting to achieve as to how much you're willing to make mistakes. Actually, because it's fine to, it's actually crucial. I'd say it's crucial to make mistakes, because you learn better from the mistakes. If you get something right all the time, you don't know about experimenting, you don't know kind of how to expand your horizons. So you need to make mistakes as a recording engineer. Do it when the client's not there. But even then, sometimes those mistakes are brilliant, because they end up producing something which you'd never have expected, and that's the magic. That's the magic of audio, because you can do stuff which just blows your mind when you don't even realize it. So
brilliant. That has been a great conversation. And
thank you.
I'm sure we've got a lot of young people that are kind of looking to go into this kind of sound stuff. So I think some of the tips that you've given there will be so beneficial to them listening.
Thank you very much for having me.
Honestly, a pleasure. It's been great listening to you. You know, tell your story and stuff.
I'm sorry.
No, it's so important. I wish when I was 15 getting into music, I wish I could hear people like you speaking and sharing that, because I know when I was 15, it felt like I was the only person that was into music, or that me and very few others were into it.
I know what you mean. They're very kind of pockets of places, especially kind of in Cumbria. Where it's a lot of effort to kind of meet like-minded people. And
you sometimes you need just that person to go, well, actually, I did this, I did that. There's no like magic behind it. I think a lot of people, it's like this unattainable land of music where only, you know, the big stars can do, and you think, well, no, it's not that. And conversations like this make it, you know, accessible.
Really, you know what? Somebody again gave me a great piece of advice years ago, and they said, when, you know, back in the days of CDs, when people were kind of submitting CDs and they weren't submitting MP3s or WAVs, always mixing WAV, by the way, it sounds a lot better. Quality. But he said to me, look, if you're wanting to submit something to a record label, and this isn't really applicable nowadays, but the theory is the same, don't submit it in a white envelope, because everybody submits it in a white envelope. Submit it in a red envelope, because yours is the one that stands out. Now, you know, take that and remove the CDs and think about how you can come across as different or better or more attractive in whatever you end up doing than the next person who's going to be applying for the same job as you. There's going to be something which makes you unique. And you might know it. You might need to ask other people what they think that is. And don't be afraid to ask people about that. But find out what that thing is that makes you unique, because that will be the thing that makes you sing and fly. And it's really important to be bold, be brave, believe in yourself, have the courage of conviction to know that what you're doing is right. Don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to take criticism, because that's important as well, because that's how you grow as people. I still think that I have most of the answers. That's not true. I really don't. But what I've learned over the years is to surround yourself with people who do know the answers more than you do, because you can call on them. And then they will hopefully trust you to advise them as well. And that's all about community. And it's all of this is all about people and community. That's what comes first. And Cumbria has got a great music community, especially with, you know, the likes of Kendall Calling, and look how that's kind of evolved over the years as well. Cumbria is on the map. There's some amazing bands that have come from Cumbria, you know. And I'm sure, hopefully, a few people who are watching this might end up having really, really successful careers in music. I sincerely hope that's true, because Cumbria has got so much to offer.
Yeah.
And don't think you've got to do it from anywhere other than Cumbria. Nowadays, you can stay in Cumbria and do the stuff.
Yeah. Listen
Go
up,
Cumbria.
people. Go Cumbria, yeah. Wow, thank you so much. So to finish us off, we at Soundwave have a weekly meet-up every week on Zoom recently, to talk about new music that we're into, artists that we're loving, new albums, talk about past festival sets that we've really enjoyed and stuff. But Song of the Week is something that we all really love here, and we like to ask our guests if they've got an artist that they're into, or a song that they think people should go and listen to right now. Anything at all that you've been listening to and been into. If you could share something, that would be great.
All right.
It's a big question.
It is. You know what it's like when you say to somebody, so what's your favourite band? And anyone who's music kind of goes,
everybody.
I've got no idea. Right, so okay, keep it Cumbrian. There's an awesome, if you're into folk music, I mean, so I played Nirvana, I played Rachmaninoff in folk music, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I'll just take folk music as one area of music that I love. And I went to school with a guy called Robert Harbron, who was a year above me. He played English concertina, Squeezebox. And he then went on to do bonkers things. He is the most respected, best English concertina player in the UK now. He came from kind of Penrith way.
Wow.
Again, passion, conviction, dedication. Didn't give up. Went on to be a Radio 2 Young Folk Musician of the Year, all this kind of stuff. Bonkers. He's in a band called Leveret. And I remember when we had our little girl, so I've got 2 kids, so we had a little girl, she came second. And I took some time off work to spend about 5 months looking after those 2 while my wife was doing some work herself. And I remember being in the kitchen one day and dancing to a song called Dundas by Leveret. Just me and my little girls having a bit of a dance, you know. And it's just that power of music forever now. I'll remember that moment where I was off work because it was more important to look after the kids, and dancing with my little girl, who would have been about, months old at that point, you know. And thinking, I went to school with this guy. He's done amazingly well. His music is beautiful. So Leveret, Dundas. Go and listen to it.
Yes, I'm going to go and listen to that right now after this.
Let me know what you think.
Yeah, will do. Right, we'll check it out, everybody. And I hope you've enjoyed this interview. I'm sure I definitely have. I've been totally listening, hanging on every word, listening. So, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. And I say, Cumbria is God's county as far as I'm concerned. It's a fantastic place, and I sincerely, if anything I can do to help, give me a shout.
Oh, thank you very much.